So naming is not a simple, straightforward thing.
There's a Euphorbia stella spina with thorns like stars.
That umhlabamanzi is a medicine. People, they use leaves, they use roots.
You learn Africa, acacia is Africa. It's part of Africa. You grew up with that.
So this is how worthy are. And on this side we have low-growing euphorbias, and up there we have the tree euphorbias. Tree euphorbias are usually not in this area because this is a hothouse. Tree euphorbias can get very big. Euphorbia ingens can get so big that a lion can climb into it and sit up there. But it's
Euphorbias, when they ripen, it bursts open, it shoots a seed. So when you've got a euphorbia collection, they germinate all over in all your pots and so on.
So Darby, how do you stop the seeds from shooting all over the place?
I make little pouches out of net or something, just like a small pouch with a twine that you can pull. So I put it over the seed and tighten it, so when it shoots, it catches.
Like a little sock?
Yeah, like a little sock.
We had this problem with one of our plants, Euphorbia triangularis. We had a nice big one. So nice that it, one of our curators for an exhibition, Cyril Kutsia, asked me to put it with paintings and sculptures of plants at the Standard Bank Gallery, and so we took a lot of trouble in a trailer and off we went. We came back, and then at the end of the exhibition we brought it back. And what happened, John?
It fell, huh?
It fell down.
Yeah.
From high up, it fell down, and what happened?
So it came apart, so it was broken in pieces. Yeah, because you see, once they break, you see the milk coming out there, so you don't want to plant it without milk.
Yeah.
You have to dry it.
You want to wait
and
for
then
the
once
So you think the milk will make it rot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it has to stop at milk building, and then and then after you put in a pot, put a little bit of water, and then it grows easy. So now we have 5 of them. They are big now.
So they came from the misadventure of your exhibition.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well done.
And now they
That's
grow
brilliant.
nice.
They're very happy.
Yeah.
I think plants are named for various reasons. Either the places where they are found, or the botanists that find them or study them, or they are named for their shapes, the way they look.
But just as the Latin names are very descriptive, so is the common names, the English names or the Afrikaans names is very descriptive. For instance,
And Zulu.
Yeah, and Zulu as well. For instance, if you take what they call the book aloe, when it's small, the leaves, it looks like the open book and so on. And that's where the name book aloe comes from.
The name umhlabamanzi, it means like pointing the water. Umhlabamanzi. So you're pointing on the water. If you drink, you boil it, you drink it, it helps. So that kind of thing, and it grows next to the sea. That's where you find it. And we also have it here at Willem's house, umhlabamanzi.
Yeah.
Well, I think what, for me, when I talk to botanists, the first test I have of their opinions about life and their stance scientifically is the big debate on acacia. We have so many species of acacia, and many a young field naturalist cuts his teeth on, and her teeth, on wandering through the veld looking at South African acacias. And then they get taken away from us and replaced by Vachelia and Senegalia. I've railed against it because over 60s rail against name change. I think under 40s welcome it, and that's life. But there's no doubt that people have taken a stance, and some are still incredibly irritated with the fact that the Aussies have run off with our beloved acacia. But where do you sit on the?
I agree that are completely two different things. If you look at them, definitely they don't really belong each other. But I agree with. In the beginning, you learn Africa. Acacia is Africa. It's part of Africa. You grew up with that.
The strange thing is there are acacias in North America and in South America and in Central America. They are there. They're different species, of course. This is what?
Facelia carew.
You got it right. This is a Facelia. It used to be Acacia carew. Soetdoring and the enkeldoring or the Engelse doring. The old farmers called it the Engelse doring because they had a problem with the English. And the wood of the enkeldoring or Engelse, the robusta, it's not easy to work with. It's usually full of cracks and worms.
That's the English.
And they said that's why they called it the Engelse doring. It's good for nothing.
Full of cracks and worms. You know, getting on to that side of things, Willem, and
sorry about that, but that's true. That's the actual thing.
As I've driven around Southern Africa, I've been aware of this propensity of Afrikaans people who've named the colloquial names of the plants that they become familiar with is if they can get into a perfectly innocuous looking plant with a nice little scent and pretty little leaves, if they can call it buster, snort, piss, hole,
something like that, yeah.
Something really earthy, whereas the English would come along and call it traveller's joy or mother-in-law's tongue making. For those of us, I'm sure all of us have here, been lucky enough to travel through Namaqualand, and it's one of the great wonders of the world. Having said that, it's a consequence of ecologically bad management, the flowers as we see them. But there's a most beautiful flower that scrambles with satin, beautiful colours that are almost indescribable to in words say how much they mimic silk, and it revels in the name of Grelium subfusiforum, and the Afrikaans name for that is Piet Snot.
Yeah.
Now I've often wondered,
how do you make that connection?
How do you make that connection? It's just, it definitely made me remember the plant more.
Yeah.
And Linnaeus was the man who said, you can't just have the red-eyed, green leaf bulb. You can't, and the pink-flowered papaver and the this and the that. People were making up names, and nobody knew what they were talking about. So there needed to be a systematic way of classifying. Then he suggested they name it they Latinize the words. Even if it's Greek, it's Latinized. Name it after the classical languages so that there's a standard. This one, Cymbiformis, because
plant.
Somebody thought that each leaf that comes out of the plant and that proceeds into a sharp point and has a hollowness to it, looks like a boat. And in Greek, I forgot, means boat. So it's named after the Greek word for a boat. And in this case, tessellata, well, tessellated floors are usually full of small little tiles, and they have patterns in them. And if you look at the leaves closely, they are beautifully patterned in, they look a bit like a lizard almost, with tiles situated in a pattern. So they can be named after a smaller feature on the plant. Tessellata is named just after the pattern that you see on the leaf. It's beautiful. Looks like a floor that's tiled. This looks like the shape of a boat.
Coming back to the shape of the boat, there's that beautiful flower bulb that grows in the Namaqualand, some other parts as well, but there's a lot in the Namaqualand. Old man in the boat. I think Afrikaans call it patrijsblom also. And that also, the original name, Willem, what was that?
Androsymbium.
Androsymbium. That's again the symbium with a boat.
Symbium.
But now I see they've been changed to Collocution.
All of them have, yeah. Just as we got them right.
Yeah.
I love shapes. Morphology is one of the... I'm writing a dictionary of morphology because I find the names people give to shapes to try and match the shapes with language. I find it fascinating that we just talked earlier on about some of these plants. This one is cylindrifolia. The leaves look like cylinders. There's a little Euphorbia stellata. It means little stars. And the way it's shaped and the way that the flowers come out, it looks like the sky with little stars. Sorry. And as a sculptor, to try and make these shapes, tessellata, the way that thing is shaped, it's very hard to make a sculpture that looks like that. Then sometimes also the names reflect the shapes. This is grandidentata, this aloe. It means it's got a grand arrangement of little thorns or little spines. And it's quite a colorful thing. It's a beautiful little thing because of the way it's shaped.
So does dentata mean thorns?
It means it's got teeth.
Teeth.
Dentate.
Dentate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's got teeth. This one is aloe pictifolia. There are small little dots on the leaves. Thousands of them.
There's a Euphorbia stella spina with thorns like stars.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. If you look at the thorns, they're very star-shaped. Stella is a star.
Stella spina.
So, for
Star
me,
spines.
if I look at those shapes, and as a sculptor I try and sculpt them in wood, and I have this project called the Blind Alphabet Project. I sculpt them in such a way that they would be tactile and soft and that you can carry them, so that blind people would be able to enjoy them, and the language of it, of how it came that these things were named like this after the way they are shaped. To me that's fascinating. Thanks for traipsing all the way to my workshop. This is where I work on wooden projects mostly, and because I make sculptures that resemble specific morphological ideas, shapes. So these things are more or less facsimiles, but they're not the real thing. They are abstractions, they are artworks really of the real thing. So
The concept, that conceptual art is at the core of what you do.
It's not, I don't make carrots and
Really,
flowers.
it's the
and
concept
so on.
of something, perhaps.
I have to think it through,
Yeah.
and it becomes something which it has a life outside of the thing where it originates from, the flower or the carrot. I've made about 500 shapes now, and it's mainly in a project that I try and involve blind people because of their reading skills, their braille reading skills, and I play with really interesting words that are not common in the artists community, especially words that might here and there be common to botanists, to people from another science. So I get these words in many dictionaries. I collect dictionaries and then I look for words that are related to form and structure. And then I make these weird looking things.
But the true art lies in creating that,
You
that
have
thing.
to go away from the thing itself.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Down the line. It's like this. And it's got feet. It can stand like this. And the word is imbrication or imbricate. And it means having, we spoke about tessellations. This is an ideal tessellation of shapes. But it really means something like roof tiles. Shapes that are overlapping somewhat and keep the water off the roof. But it's also used for lizards, for big lizards especially, where they have, these are made of horn on a crocodile maybe, but
Pangolins.
pangolins have definitive one, and plants. So I looked at different shapes, and this I got from something that looks like a pine tree or palm tree. So I got this pattern from that, and I made these little shapes and gave each shape a feeling, a little ridge, so that it's not just a roof tile.
Have you ever seen a raffia farm?
I was just going to tell you about it. It reminds me of the seed of a raffia.
Yeah, it looks very much
exactly.
the same.
Yeah.
I've seen one as well. Yeah.
And they're shiny, and they're exactly that.
They're
exactly
pineapple-y, but very shiny,
Yeah.
brown.
And it's curious, there's a species of vulture that exists
Exactly that.
on prizing off those very hard to remove tiles, because it's a tile really that covers it. Yeah, it's exactly.
This plant, I think you know this plant.
Fenestraria, or the window plant.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mark was also commenting, there's one there.
I must say, looking at this, it's so well named
Yeah,
because it's translucent, nearly transparent, so that the sunlight would be able to go down and do the photosynthesis necessary. It's really a very beautiful plant. I can well see why you would want to use it.
I've seen them in up there near Alexander Bay in the desert there, and you don't see them at all, except when the flower comes out. You see this yellow flower coming out of the
these
sand.
ones flower.
Yeah, and if you just blow off the sand, then
So the sand
fingers
comes almost to the top.
right to the top. It
Yeah,
covers
so it's just the window.
it's just the window.
Wonderful.
But right at the top, the very top, there's a little, it almost looks like a piece of glass. That's why it's got the name Fenestraria, because in Latin, fenestra is a window. English-speaking people have lost the word. They speak of a window, they don't speak of a venster or a fenestra. Afrikaans people speak about a venster. But in English, there is a word in the dictionary. It's the word defenestrate. You know what that means? It means, I swear to you, it's in the dictionary. It means to throw someone out the window.
Defenestrate. That is
So I don't like.
that is absolutely vintage Boshoff.
Yeah. If I don't like, I'm going to defenestrate. So I really like playing with the word. So I started turning this thing, and I got this far. Now I'm not too sure what I'm doing, but it's thick at the top and it thins out. But I turned it on the lathe. So I think what I must do is stick it back on the lathe. I've got a little window here. This is supposed to go on top. And I feel like not making it, I feel like cheating and making it not convex, concave, and then this might be the soil. And if I turn a little bit more, the soil becomes the plant. So that's my head now taking over and going somewhere with this thing. So that is my, and then finally I will write fenestriform in braille on the top of this thing, or maybe even there, I don't know where. So it's not finished, Now our last one is this thing here. I kind of live in a fairyland of shapes, but they are actually tested scientifically, tested mathematically sometimes, and I fight with them. I'm a shape fighter, and then out comes these weird things. One of the strangest things I've ever discovered is this, from this Botanical Latin by William Stern, and on page 333 there is a drawing, and this one, I'm doing the letter I, but so this one is so small you can hardly see it, and I'll read to you what it says. It says, in duplicativa, having the margins bent abruptly inwards and the external face of these edges apply to each other without any twisting, as in the flowers of some species of clematis. Now, I have hundreds of photographs of clematis and I've never seen anything like what they're talking about, but here is a sketch. Now I have to explain to you what's going on. Well, all the flowers and all the leaves, they have to be buds before they become leaves. And these people, these scientists, have studied these buds in a strange way. They've taken a sharp knife and they've cut through the center of the bud. They've chopped it through like a slice of bread. And they've studied it carefully, and they found that every flower has a different pattern inside its bud before it becomes a flower. And these are drawings of those patterns. They're weird. It's unbelievable. And the one I have chosen that starts with the letter I is this. So this is a slice of bread. It's not really, but it is a slice through the center of a clematis flower. I've just enlarged it maybe a few hundred times, because the flowers are not perfectly geometrical. They have a slight thickness and they're natural things. So you will find, if you look at this, that one is thicker and smaller, this one is thinner and longer. They have a coming and going slightly, and they fit perfectly. And what I like is the way that there's some sort of lip thing forming around the central part. So that's what this is. It's that little thing there. I'm at a loss for words, really. It's gone far beyond what one normally expects shapes to look like and to be. But I like doing this sort of weird stuff. It's my fairy tale, my life.
I was, when I came in this room half an hour ago, I was looking at that book. My summary of it was that it's a indication of the uniqueness of Willem Boshoff. that a book called, let's see the title again, Botanical Latin, 4th edition by William T. Stern, would in this place be a very much used book, and in any other library in the world would be the least used book in that library. And yet now it powers an entire genesis of things that you're going to make out of this book. And it's extraordinary.
Well, so I'm kind of living my love for plants through my art. This is a real thing. I make these sculptures a lot. If I've made 500 in the last few years, there's quite a lot of little sculptures. And they are made so that they're lightweight and can handle by blind people, pick up and fondle and caress, so on. Feel the texture of the wood.